Very good morning, everyone from Geneva. Namo Buddhaya and Jai Bhim, and wishing everyone a very happy 134th Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Jayanti. We are because he was, and it's really an honor to speak to all of you today. Special thanks to Sanjay Samanji, who has been a dear friend, for inviting me, and apologies for not being present in person there. Before I start this presentation, I would like to say a few things about my own background. I am Asangwan Kere. uh, I'm doing my PhD DPhil in law at the University of Oxford. I'm already an Oxford graduate. I finished my Master of Philosophy in Law 2 years, 3 years now back, and also currently working here at the United Nations office at Geneva. So whatever I speak in this video is not in my official capacity as a member of UNOG, and instead all my views are personal. So let's begin. My video got very viral that I gave a 45-minute video to Aman Kamleji from Awaz India. It already has 1,40,000 views. And I'm going to speak today about this very pertinent issue of Mahabodhi Temple, the destruction of Mahabodhi Temple, and what my argument is, and what I've been working on the legal aspect of things, which is that the destruction of Mahabodhi Temple, appropriation by Brahmin priests, violates international law. Uh, Mahabodhi Mahavihara uh, was listed as a World Heritage Site, and that enlisting in the World Heritage Site list brings the whole complex within the parameters of international law. In the short 15-minute video, and if you would like to see more in-depth analysis, you can watch the other 45-minute video. But in this 15-minute video, I will briefly discuss what and how, uh, what we can do, of course, to in this struggle in Bodh Gaya Mahabodhi Mukti Andolan, but also at the same time, what is the clear violation of international law. So, the World Heritage Convention requires state parties, to which India has ratified in 1977. That means the Treaty of World Heritage Convention is binding on India. Requires protection, conservation, and presentation of the heritage. The heritage of Mahabodhi is not limited to only Indians or few South Asian, Southeast Asian Buddhist countries, but global is a global heritage. And the obligation on India as a member state is to take appropriate legal, scientific, technical, administrative, and other measures to protect the heritage site. Now, the historical references are very important. I will not go too much into detail, but Yuan Sang, who was a Buddhist pilgrimage to India, all of us would have heard about it, did note the magnificent Mahabodhi temple built by Ashoka back then. And using the same references, Alexander Cunningham, who was a British archaeologist, excavated and restored Mahabodhi temple in 1980s. Uh, he also wrote, of course, a book which explains in detail every single archaeological finding that he had and how did he come. And I will not go to the Bahruth stupa inscription, etc., but how he was able to find the exact spot of Mahabodhi temple. The reason that we have to go back to history is to really reject and debunk the myth that Mahabodhi is an actual Vishnu site or a Hindu site. These are again some references from his book. And what these references tell us that the loot, the theft of Buddhist artifacts and Buddha's images and statues have is not a new thing. It has been happening since time immemorial, and all of us already know that a lot of other temples apart from Mahabodhi Mahavihara have been appropriated and taken over by Brahmins in particular across India. But in this particular instance, it's very important to understand that the theft or the appropriation of statute by the Brahmin priest is not a new thing. Alexander Cunningham already notes that way back in 1880s, when he was restoring, excavating at the site, he found the current largest statue of Buddha, which is currently established in the Garbhagriha, as we say, the inner scantum of the Mahabodhi Temple. He found that in a Brahminical monastery within the vicinity of Mahabodhi. This is the image. This was when they restored Mahabodhi and they installed Buddha's main statue inside the main scantum. And this is also very important because this is the restored site, how it looked when the British archaeologists restored it. But before the Arches of the Great Temple in 1877, before the temple was restored, you could still see that the ancient structure is in the background, and in the front there is a new construction, a recently new construction, which is nothing but the Brahminical monastery. Similar photos as well, and I think I'll just come to the Mahabodhi temple map really quickly. You can see on this map that at the very center there is a Mahabodhi complex, and from the bottom of the page towards the top, you'll see there's also the Vajrasana, or the seat, or the diamond throne where Buddha attended enlightenment. You can see in a dot outline on the left hand side, just by a box A. Those are the structures which are temporary, which are not ancient structures. So it is really Cunningham who tells us that these Brahminical monasteries are not ancient and are rather a new encroachment. I'll come to the issue of the claim that Hindus make that Buddha is an avatar of Vishnu. This controversy has already been resolved in the year 1895 by the district magistrate of Gaya. H. Dharmapala, or the Anagaric Dharmapala, versus Jaipal Gir. Jaipal Gir, and of course now his descendants, and now is of course family which has that sort of takeover of Mahabodhi Temple, consider themselves as the descendants of Sankara or the Sankaracharya. And they had put forward this argument that ancient Buddhist site was nothing but a Hindu site because Buddha is an avatar of Vishnu. Quote, way back in 1895, already rejected this argument by the Mahants and the Gir Mahants and the descendants of Shankaracharya, that it has been appropriated, and whatever has been happening, the Hindu deities that have been established, whatever appropriation that is happening, is only because the Hindus want to take over a Buddhist site. The temples of Tara Devi, Vageswari Devi, Savitri Devi, and Pashpando temples, all of them are nothing but temples of Buddha and have images of Buddha which are really appropriated by the Hindu. You all would have seen the videos of a Brahmin priests having covered the statues of Buddha, calls it as Pashpanda. Now, this sort of really brings me to the legal question. What is the legal question, and what I have been doing as well to highlight this issue internationally? The legal question is whether the acts present and the past to damage and deliberately destroy Mahabodhi Mahavihara violates Buddhist heritage, violates international law, and whether it's a misappropriation of Buddhist heritage. The 1972 World Heritage Convention, which is an international law treaty to which India has ratified in 1975, India has ratified to the treaty in 1975, puts an obligation on the Indian state to protect, conserve, and ensure that all measures are taken to to preserve the cultural heritage of a particular site. Because the damage, if it is done, is not only a damage to the nation or to that particular heritage site, but it is considered a damage to the entire world heritage. That is very important. And most importantly, the government is under even more strenuous obligation as to not let the political conditions and socioeconomic conditions deteriorate the particular cultural site which is happening in this case. It's of outstanding universal value. This is from the website of UNESCO and really coming to what has been the condition since 2014. The state is under an obligation to submit reports which are called as the State of Conservation reports. And since 2014, there has not been a single State of Conservation report submitted by the Government of India. I do not have to tell you what happened in 2014. That is a matter of public knowledge, but it's very clear that since that time, not a single report has been published. Now, really coming to a multi-pronged legal strategy, like now I'll explain how it violates, of course, international law as well. You have to fight it on multiple instances. People approach me saying that Bhante Suri Sasai from Nagpur filed a case way back in 2011 uh, in the Supreme Court uh, challenging this illegal takeover. This is not a new thing. But unfortunately, in last 2014, I think, uh, in last 10 or 11 years, there has not been a single hearing on that particular case. And I'll come to why we need to go move away from public interest litigation and file an actual writ petition challenging the illegal activities and unconstitutionality of the 1949 Act. I have also pointed here that we should file a complaint against Bodh Gaya Temple Management Committee, which is the BTMC, before the state government and the central government as well. And then file representations before UNESCO, under which sort of under a process of doing that, and continue Andolan at the grassroots, which is very crucial because a lot of people say, oh, what are we going to achieve with taking sort of doing this Andolan at the grassroots? But my take on it is that all of these parts are important and form part of the larger multi-pronged legal strategy that all of us should and must mention. Violation of international law, the evidence, the videographic evidence, and of course the documentary evidence is very clear that images, statues of Buddha and Buddhist heritage has been appropriated. It has been appropriated as a Hindu temple by the Brahmin priests from a very long time. Uh, and what violates international law is this very passing off of Buddha's statues as Hindu Pandavas and Devis or goddesses. And we have also seen that now there has been a Shivlinga installed in one of those uh, small encroachments of the Mahabodhi I think it's in the middle room that has been installed. It was done so by physically removing ancient Buddhist statues, Buddha statues, um, from the temple premises. It's nothing but a theft and clear looting that we can see. There is because I know that I'm very short on time, I'll take for 2 or 3 more minutes to just wrap up. But there is also reactive monitoring process, which is intended to only uh, focus on what is the state of conservation and protection, because the job of UNESCO, and especially the World Heritage Committee, doesn't stop at recognizing a particular site as a World Heritage Site. Instead, there is a constant accountability and a feedback mechanism, and therefore we as individuals could use this reactive monitoring process to highlight the destruction. I will not go into too much of detail about what is international law, what is a monist and a dualist system, but it's very clear that after the Vishaka 1997 guidelines of the Supreme Court of India, it is very much possible for the Supreme Court to fill the vacuum in Indian domestic law because India has not passed a law to implement that particular international treaty in domestic law. But however, that shouldn't stop us from arguing uh, because of the existing jurisprudence and the judgments of the Supreme Court that the inaction of the Bihar government and the Indian government to protect the World Heritage Site amounts to a violation of international law. Challenges to the 1949 Act. So 1949 Act, in my analysis, is a part of a bigger problem, of course, but we shouldn't only ask for uh, repealing of the 1949 Act because mind it, whatever theft and looting that has taken place, whatever has been currently ongoing, has been happening despite having four Buddhist members on the PTMC committee. Those people could have and should have raised these issues and taken all the measures to stop this. Uh, the BTMC Act itself violates Article 25. And I think come to how even the international body considered repealing of the 49 Act, but it's illegal to allow other religions from appropriating, encroaching upon ancient Buddhist temple. 1949 Act permits that. It legally permits that. It was in one of the reactive monitoring processes that the UNESCO World Heritage Committee recommended that the state law actually is grossly insufficient in protecting the World Heritage Site, and instead recommended to have a national legislation, a central government legislation to prohibit this particular uh, uh, form of destruction of ancient statues. Um, since the time is, I'm already over time, I will quickly wrap up. But what we as individuals need to do, and especially the Saudi Ambedkarite community, is to contribute and support in bringing international pressure and international legal pressure. We are not doing any form of anti-India activities, but what we are just requesting the Indian government, and as we have, and our brothers and sisters and Bantijis and Bhikkhunis have done at the grassroots, is to peacefully request and for a stop of this destruction. In order to do that,